What is going on, YouTube people? Neo Cards and Comics here for the Sunday weekly market update, touching on news, topics, and some charts and graphs from the week in sports cards. Like, comment, subscribe. You guys and girls know the drill by now. Couple news bite things to get into, and then a little bit of football, a little bit of basketball, and actually a little bit of a baseball heavy skew today when we get to the old charts and graphs segment. But there's a lot going on in that world with home run chases and this, that, and the other thing. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and just dive straight into this bad boy. Topic number one of the week, and it's been a hot button one for sure, though actually kind of not as hot as I thought it was going to be. We'll get to that in a second. So what am I talking about here? The Herbert Black 101 that sold for $1.1 million in a BGS 9 this past week had the whole before and after with the surface being cleaned and, kind of an ongoing debate this week about cleaning of cards. I'm kind of using air quotes there. And what side of the fence you kind of come down with. Is this card now altered? Is it not? Is there going to be long-term issues? Is there chemicals involved? Is it okay to use a foreign substance to clean a card surface if it doesn't have chemicals in it? Can you use a little bit of water and maybe a little bit of soap or some other natural magical concoctions and that makes it okay? Where do you draw the line here? And I find it an extra fascinating debate, and I may have a guest on later this week to talk about it because, as anyone that watches the channel knows, I play around on the comic book side quite a bit. Now, I don't grade comics. I usually buy things pre-graded. And once again, we'll do a deeper dive on this probably this week, guest or not. I have a bunch of examples to pull up and stuff, but cleaning and pressing on the comic book side is 100% normal and will not get you hit with restoration grade unless you're physically adding new things to the comic book. So if you're adding a missing staple, mending paper, all sorts of crazy nonsense these guys do on the comic book side of things. But a simple clean and press, so because a cover might have some wrinkles in it, some dents, some creases, in comics, 100% acceptable to press those out. In fact, CGC, the main comic book grader, they're the PSA equivalent, if you will, they offer a pressing service. You could pay an extra couple bucks. They'll press the book for you while it's there. Or there is a whole cottage industry built up around cleaning and pressing. Now, they're not adding anything to it. They're pressing out the wrinkles. So what's the difference between that? And, they'll take erasers to covers to remove stains. There's some new method now that I don't fully understand where they're cleaning covers, and it makes a huge difference. Once again, we'll kind of dig into this more later this week, possibly. But on the card side of things, if someone takes, I saw some videos where a corner is messed up and they have a little tool that they use to flatten it back down again. And people are calling that altered. I just find it so interesting that in cards, something like that, pressing the card back down to get that corner flat or cleaning the surface off, there's a segment of people that are screaming altered. Whereas on the comic book side of things, and it is apples to oranges, I get it, but it's a similar it's a paper-based medium. Cleaning and pressing and that sort of stuff are 100% acceptable. It's not viewed as altered or anything like that at all. It gets a CGC blue label, not a purple restoration label. And it's all fine and dandy. It's encouraged, in fact. But on the card side, if you do anything other than a dry microfiber, there's a certain segment of people that are like, oh my goodness, you're a card doctor, you're evil, get out of here. And I'm with you, trimming, that sort of stuff is a whole 9 yards. But generally speaking, I don't know that I have a huge problem with this per se, at least the cleaning portion. Getting stuff off the surface of a card that's not supposed to be there, I don't know that I view that as like the most terrible thing in the world. Whether that's a fingerprint or some goo residue, maybe from sealing the pad, who knows? Whatever it is that's on there. I don't know what caused this particular issue on this Herbert, because I didn't have the card in hand to be able to feel it. But we've all had stuff come out of packs that's got a little funky funk on it that you need to get off there. So, and I get it is there's a weird line that you walk down on. When do you cross over from just cleaning the card to air quotes altering the card? Because some of these products will fill in micro scratches. So then now are you altering the card if there's like little scratchers and roller marks on the front that this, different stuff that people put on card surfaces kind of eliminate that? That maybe starts to get a little bit squirrely. I don't know, but like, where do you draw that line? I was curious, I asked, I ran a poll over on the community tab, that basically said, wiping down a card, most people agree with is perfectly fine, but is it okay to use a cleaner on Chrome cards like wax, natural solutions, magical potions, etc., to remove foreign substances and possibly help with small scratches? And this got, as of time of recording, which is early Saturday afternoon, 650 votes. 70% of people said this is totally fine, with 30% of people saying no. Honestly, I was surprised by these results. I thought it would be closer to 50-50. I really did. I'm really surprised that it's this, I don't want to say skewed, and I don't think either side's necessarily wrong. It's just very interesting what, having played in multiple collectible markets, what flies in one versus another. And it was funny, just to not spend too much time on this, when Marvel cards first took off, a lot of comic book people were coming in and wanting to submit Marvel cards to PSA for grading, and they were an outsider to card grading. And I got a lot of DMs asking me about, hey, like, how do I need to clean and press my cards before they go in? Is there someone that does this? How do you do it? Like, it was this weird thing of like, no, you can't press a card before you send it in. That'll get flagged is altered pretty quick if you flatten it out too much. So just very interesting. And once again, curious in the comments down below, kind of your thoughts and opinions on this whole thing. Is it up to the grading company to catch it if it gets too far, if there's too much air quotes foreign substances added? I don't know. I've never seen someone getting a card rejected before for cleaning the surface. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm sure there's not people making a bunch of YouTube videos about it, but in this case, the people that do this all the time, that submit these cards, you would think the people submitting them after they get them clean, if they were coming back rejected, would be making a stink about that because they'd be pissed off. I don't necessarily typically see that. So, interesting times, interesting discussion point. And like I said, we might do a little bit of a deeper dive on this next week. I went through and pulled a bunch of examples. I was actually talking to Lamine James about this on IG and was sending him some examples of, what some of the comic book guys do. And it's literally wild. It's like, it's literally an art form, how these guys clean and press some of these comic books. And like I said, I'll show you some of that probably in a video next week. Like I said, trying to line up a guest potentially for that one. But that was the number one hottest topic button of the week by far. The other big thing that happened this week, and shout out to my boy Filmington, friend of the channel, and just straight up friend of mine, did a couple videos actually, about Topps Chrome baseball released this past week. And he did a follow-up video on Saturday entitled 2022 Topps Chrome Baseball Sucks. This was a product that I was kind of excited about and thought it had some potential. This was early on in the season, when the who, what, and where in regards to what rookie cards were going to fall into which sets and all this stuff was kind of figuring itself out. And to be quite frank, if you pre-ordered this product, you probably got burned. Topps Chrome Baseball looks like a massive dud. For those that don't know what's going on, all the hot main rookies, they made super short print only, and like there's not a base Julio Rodriguez, which means there's no refractor, etc. There's some nonsense going on with autos. As of time of recording, no, I shouldn't. I don't want to get too far out of my depth of field here, but let's just say not a lot of those short print rookies have turned up yet. And people are wondering if they are even in the actual product because no one's pulled any yet, or exactly how short print are these things. So just as a general PSA, go check out Filmington's video. He does a very in-depth review on this. And for all things baseball, Filmington is an excellent source of knowledge. He's been a guest on the channel multiple times on live streams. And I typically like to try to have him on before the season starts, just to kind of talk about, where the current baseball world's at. But this product seems super sketchy. I personally would not touch it at retail. Blasters and megas and whatever else comes out seems like a terrible deal. And I would be very careful on hobby boxes, jumbo boxes, etc. of this product. Like I said, go check out Filmington's little 10-minute video here talking about it. And, he watched some case breaks and just doesn't look great. And I know people are going to run to, Fanatics, here comes Fanatics ruining everything. I would be curious to know how much Fanatics actually had a say in this product. My gut tells me is that this product was probably most of the way across the finish line at the beginning of the year when Fanatics took Topps over, or at least most of the way down the path, that it was too late for Fanatics to really do anything. Personally, I'll give Fanatics the benefit of the doubt on this release. Everything that I have been told is Fanatics really won't have much of an impact on product until next year's releases. Like 2023 releases will be the first time they've had a little bit of hand in kind of shaping the way that this stuff goes. Whether that's true or not, or just smoke, I don't know. I'm tending to kind of believe it just because of the timeline of when they took over and how much lead time is required on these products. I'm sure there's things that they would have liked to change about it, but once it's so far down the road, there's probably nothing they can do. But we'll kind of see what happens there. That's pretty much it for the newsy stuff that I wanted to talk about. Let's go ahead and move into a little bit of market movers. Link in the description down below. $1 for the first month. There's various different pricing tiers for as little as $9.99. And not launched yet, we are getting beta access to Market Movers X. So if you sign up for Market Movers, yours will look like the older version that I typically use. But Market Movers X is coming to the masses very, very shortly. A much, much nicer redesign. Really like what I've seen so far. Kind of clicking around on it, giving them a little bit of feedback on some stuff. But generally speaking, a very improved product from an aesthetic standpoint, and just kind of the way things operate make a lot more sense. Let's go ahead and dive in and talk about football first. Using the Market Pulse indexes here, it's very funny. This is going back 14 days, and this is football from 2000 all the way up to 2020. 3 different groups here. The season started here. It's very interesting how all 3 lines were very close together, and then the season starts, and then haywire ensues, and they all grow crazy in regards to kind of very splitting apart almost, which is very, very interesting. We'll talk about some individual players here in a second, but I just found it amusing that, up until the season starting, they were very much in line with each other. And then we had first contact with the enemy and things just went whoop and kind of drastically split apart here. We've had, this is, by the time you're watching this, week 2 is probably about to happen or ongoing or just happened, depending on exactly when you're tuning in. Week 1 of the season definitely saw some price swings. I did the little update video midweek. We'll talk about some individual players here in a minute. The biggest winners of the week, if I scroll down here, you can see Josh Allen, Justin Jefferson, Lamar Jackson, Saquon Barkley, Jerry Jeudy had a pretty decent price bump this week. Those guys were definitely the biggest winners. Burrow took a little bit of a hit. And we'll talk about Lance and Mac Jones here in a second. They got hit pretty hard. In fact, we can just switch over to that now. This is Trey Lance Silver. Now, I went raw here just because 2021 Prism, there's still not a lot of graded stuff hitting the marketplace. So I was curious what his raw Prism did. This is over the last 14 days, and he did play in a monsoon. I am not a Trey Lance fan. I frankly don't think he's very good. We'll see what he does against the Seahawks this week if he makes me eat words on that, eat my own words on that. But Trey Lance Silver Prism, raw, keep that in mind. Over the last 14 days is down 60%, $100 drop. $162 2 weeks ago, down to $66 now. And you can see it just kind of went off a nosedive here the last few days. I'm not super shocked by this. Once again, I'm not a big Trey Lance guy. There's a lot of people that had a lot of money wrapped up in the Trey Lance cards. You have to be extremely careful going after these young guys. There is only so many Herberts, Burrows, and Allens out there. And even those guys have some ups and downs throughout the seasons in regards to prices. So just keep that in mind when it's the summertime highs of, oh my God, this guy's going to be the next greatest thing. Is there a chance? Yes. But we kind of always talk about around here, so much hype gets built into these players. They have to exceed massive expectations just to hold on to value in a lot of cases because so much hype is put onto them. Let's go over and look at Mac Jones really quickly here. Same thing, 2021 Prism Raw Silvers. Started the 14-day period off at $152, down to $85 and a back injury. I think he's going to play this week, but another one. If he wasn't on the Patriots, I feel like this card would be worth half as much. Just the fact that he's on the Patriots is giving him a huge boost, and I just don't think he's that good of a player. So this had a 45%, 44% drop, $67 down, and we'll see what happens this week. If he's out there a little bit gimpy and gets banged around even more, I don't know. But I just don't have a lot of faith in Mac Jones stuff. Moving along here, just a quick little check-in on Patrick Mahomes. This is his silver PSA 10 and 9 and Optic Hollow PSA 10 and 9. He's one of the few players that have 2 weeks in the books. Though, week 1, he looked amazing. That was against the crappy Cardinals defense. Week 2 against the Chargers, not as good. So we'll have to see where this shakes out from here. I'll be curious to see if he has a little bit of a dip or if he stays solid. After week 1, his prices did not move at all. This is going over the last 14 days, and he had a monster game week 1, and that didn't even budge his prices. Now he kind of had a mediocre game. Maybe it's going to take, I think for his stuff, it would take multiple weeks of looking really good or really bad or just kind of meh to shift his prices one way or the other, just because of the amount of money that's poured into him. And, a lot of shenanigans go on with his auctions. Sometimes you got to watch the prices of his cards very closely if you're bidding on stuff. So as of right now, Mahomes staying pretty flat. Quick little look at basketball. We're not going to spend a lot of time here, but we are only a couple weeks away from the season. The basketball season's sneaking up on us quicker than you may or may not realize. The season is 1 month away, basically, and camps open up in 2 weeks. So it's going to be here before you know it. This is a Market Pulse index for modern basketball. It's 2010 to present. This is over the last 14 days, basically being flat. Very little to no movement, a 0.1% change across the board. This index includes a lot of the ultra modern players that you would expect to see. Base Giannis rookies, a lot of silver rookies, Kawhi base, a whole bunch of stuff here. Pretty much any player that you can imagine that has whatever their premier rookie card is, dating back to 2010. I like this index quite a bit when I scrolled through it to give just a general overall sense of kind of what the basketball market's doing. As of right now, seems to be pretty flat. Will that change once camps open up? We'll see if that kind of swings things a little bit in regards to price movements, or if it's going to take the season actually starting to move up or down as guys kind of come out of the woodwork and some guys underperform. But basketball season is going to be here before we know it. As a Cavs fan and just as an NBA fan in general, I am extremely excited and cannot wait for the NBA season to get here. Baseball. Let's hit on a couple different baseball guys really quick. Albert Pujols in the chase for 700 has had a massive impact on his cards. This is his 2001 tops traded, both the chrome and the base in PSA 10. Going back 30 days, both these cards are on massive increases, up from the chrome was $2,500 up to $3,600. The paper was at $2,300 up to $2,800. A 44% increase on the chrome and a 20% increase on the paper. I believe he's at $698 at time of recording. So hopefully he gets there. 2 more to go. It didn't look like he was earlier in the season. And then, he's just been on fire of late. So hopefully he can get over the hump. Absolutely fantastic career. So the interesting thing to see here is if he does hit 700, does it spike higher? And then does it hold? My gut tells me this will be a classic they let you buy him back situation, in that if it gets over 700 home runs, he'll get a little bit of another spike up, maybe. And then I think he slowly starts to pull back and eventually levels back out again. It's generally what we see around these milestone moments. He's had an absolutely fantastic career, massive numbers, obviously a Hall of Famer, all the stuff that goes along with Pujols, piles and piles of numbers. But there's hype and then there's a non-hype period. We're in a hype period right now because he's trending, he's in the news, he's at the top of everyone's mind. What happens in a couple months when everyone's not talking about him anymore? His prices are probably going to cool off. It's just the nature of the beast. So if you have Pujols, it might not be a bad idea to let some of it go, especially if it's just, base rookies and stuff like that. My gut tells me that there'll be an opportunity, even if he does get over 700, to potentially purchase these cards back later, unless he's like a PC guy for you or whatever. The other super hot player in baseball, Mike Trout. Mr. Boring himself. 2011 Topps update. He had 6 or 7 home runs in a row. He started the streak earlier in the week. People in the comments were very mad that I did not talk nicely on Mike Trout last week. But his stuff didn't really move a ton. He's up 20% over the last 30 days. He did get a little bump up this week. I think last week when I made the video, his stuff was going for around 1,700. It's back up to around 1,900 now. I had an interesting conversation and just kind of something I was thinking about this week. Which card would you rather own? You can see here on the screen, I also have, and I think this is part of the reason why I worry about Trout's numbers long term. So on the screen here, we have the 2011 Trout Topps update, base US 175. And I have the 89 Upper Deck Griffey Jr. To me, these two cards are very similar to each other. And the players are similar to each other to a degree. Trout's probably going to end up with better career numbers. We don't really know yet. He still has a ways to go. Griffey's obviously retired. They're both base cards. 2011 Topps, Trout has a lot of other options for rookie cards. He has some Bowman stuff and some other things out there. Some higher end parallel versions of this card as well. Whereas Griffey really doesn't. So the interesting question I guess I have, these cards are basically $100 apart right now. The 89 Upper Deck is sitting at around 2K. The Trout is, a little bit under that at 1,900. Which would you rather have? Which one would you rather own? The Griffey pop is 4,000. The Trout pop is 5,800. To me, the difference between, let's say Trout's career continues the way it's gone. He puts up really good numbers, but never wins a World Series. At this point, could he just win a playoff game? I don't know. Once Trout retires, I don't know what his values are going to look like. Is there a lot of, I know that there's a lot of Trout collectors, but when you compare him and Griffey together, Griffey never won a World Series, but Griffey was the kid. A generation grew up adoring Griffey. He had his own sneakers. He had his own video game, very popular, very, 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 very good video game for SNES. He was the face of baseball for years. And I don't know that Trout is. That's always been my point with Trout. When I say that he's boring, when you compare him to Griffey, he just does, in my opinion anyways, he does not have the sex appeal that Griffey does, if that makes sense. So curious for your thoughts and comments down below. I thought actually about making this its own entirely separate video. But just curious for your thoughts. Which card would you rather have? The 89 Upper Deck Griffey PSA 10 or the 2011 Topps Update Trout? Now, like I said, the interesting thing here is Trout still has years left on his career. He could still play for another, who knows, 5 to 10 years, depending on his back and how all that stuff shakes out. So it's just very intriguing to compare these two players together, and specifically these two cards, because as of right now, they have had an interesting career path. Now, Griffey actually had some playoff moments, and I think that matters too. I know that, a lot of people will say that stuff doesn't matter in baseball as much. It's more about the numbers, etc. And, from a greatness standpoint, Hall of Fame, all that stuff, I agree with you. But from a card standpoint, it's not just about the numbers. There's plenty of players that have really good numbers and their cards sell for crap. Part of it is the appeal of the brand of the player. And Griffey's nailed that. He has that in spades. I don't know that Trout does. That's my concern with Trout stuff. Is he very talented? Yes. Is he one of the best players in baseball currently? Yes. Is his stuff going to hold absolute long-term value? I don't know. I would rather have Griffey stuff than Trout stuff. That's just me personally. But very curious. That'll probably get the pitchforks and torches ready in the comments on that one. That's all I have for you guys and girls. Like, comment, subscribe, and we will catch you on the next one. Have a wonderful week too. Peace.